Hola chicos, la profesora Macbeth está aquí otra vez. Tengo algunas recomendaciones y comentarios de sus trabajos de la segunda semana. Además, quería decirles hola, fue un placer conocerlos a todos, ¿sí? Qué lindo ver los videos que me mandaron, sus caras y escuchar sus voces tan bonitas y poder conocerles un poco más. Entonces, me gustó tanto eso y también quería decirles nomás hola y fue un placer conocerlos. Bueno, mis comentarios de la segunda semana, casi todos hicieron todo súper bien y hicieron los trabajos exactamente como yo los quería. Algunos fueron un poco lejos, ¿no? De las metas del trabajo. Es súper importante, ¿no? Leer todas las instrucciones de todos los trabajos, asegurarse que estás quedando en el centro, sí, o en las metas, ¿no? Que es lo que dice las instrucciones del trabajo, ¿ok? Entonces, en parte era eso. Luego también se los voy a explicar en inglés, claro, para que me entiendan un poco mejor, pero primeramente quería explicar un poco en español. Además, otra cosita o otro detalle, no se les olvide que tienen que poner acentos o a veces se dicen tildes. Tienen que poner acentos porque los acentos hacen la diferencia entre una palabra y otra, a veces en español, ¿no? Por ejemplo, la palabra como con tilde significa how, ¿no? Pero la palabra como sin tilde significa as o like, ¿no? Entonces, una palabra con tilde, una palabra sin tilde puede hacer mucha diferencia, ¿no? Por ejemplo, la palabra papa, ¿no? Sin tilde es potato, ¿no? Pero la palabra papá con tilde es father, ¿no? Entonces, puede hacer una gran diferencia, ¿no? Los tildes. Entonces, es muy importante. Además, es importante poner atención a la puntuación porque la puntuación y la ortografía, esas cosas pueden ser muy diferentes en español que son en inglés, ¿no? Entonces, por ejemplo, importante poner una señal interrogativa, ¿no? Antes de la pregunta y después de la pregunta. Además, es importante no poner una señal de exclamación antes y después al final, ¿no? Entonces, hay esas dos cosas muy importantes. No se les olvide, ¿no? Que tienen que estar poniendo esas dos tipos de puntuación al principio y al final, ¿ok? So I just wanted to say, first of all, that it was such a pleasure to meet all of you. Week 2, I got to see all of your lovely faces and hear your amazing voices and get to know a little bit about all of you. And the thing that I think I took away from all of those videos is that you are all very busy. So that was very interesting. It was really great to meet all of you and put a face to all of the digital interactions that we will have in the next coming weeks. But I just like to get to know all of you in that way. So I wanted to make a few comments on your work that you did this week and also make some recommendations. So my first recommendation is the textbook is your best resource. So your textbook is your best way to make sure that you are staying within the scope of what it is that you're meant to be doing for the assignment. So a lot of you did such amazing assignments and you did so great. You did exactly what it is that I was looking for. But some of you went just way outside of the scope of the assignment. So when I talk about certain things, right, I have I'll give page numbers in the book, and you're really supposed to use those as a reference for how to complete the assignment. So for example, in this assignment, I had written, that you were going to use saludos and despedidas, and I gave you a page number. Now, if, for example, I go to that page in the book, well, I gave page 12, but also page 11 had some information on it. I would have all of these questions right here that I could use, right? And remember, you were only meant to write 4 sentences. So you could have written something like, buenos días, ¿Cómo estás? Then you could have written as a third sentence, bien, gracias. O, ¿cómo te llamas? O, me llamo, soy de, no? That's 4 sentences right there. That's all you were really meant to do, right? You weren't meant to go into these very long, in-depth things that a lot of you offered that didn't involve any of the vocabulary that was in the textbook that you were meant to use as a base for your assignment. And it had some advanced structures. So just as a frame of reference, right, I put the page numbers there at the start, right? I'm going to show you guys again where they're listed on Brightspace. So they're listed actually in 2 different places on Brightspace. So I'm going to show you where that is. Remember that you were meant to print out your syllabus checklist at the beginning of the semester. And the reason why was because it contained the page numbers to find where you needed to do everything for the term. So for example, if I go here, right, and I go into syllabus information, I find my syllabus, right? I find my syllabus checklist, right? Here in the syllabus checklist, right here, right, I'm going to find, I'm going to use this little annotate button so that I can draw on it. Here we go. All right. Here, those are the page numbers for everything that you are meant to do in the term. So whenever I need to know what I'm going to base an assignment off of, right, I can look to those page numbers. Again, if I want to go someplace else, for example, maybe I want to go directly into the week itself. So let's say I was working in week 2 and I wanted to say, oh, you know what? The discussion board says that I'm going to have to use saludos and despedidas. I wonder where I can find it, right? Well, right here, again, you have the page numbers right here. So if you were doing that, you should have gone into the textbook and gone directly into that information. Why am I emphasizing this as something that is important? I emphasize it because one of the ways that I check to see whether or not you have done the work yourself or whether or not you have used things like Google Translate is by seeing how advanced the structures it is that you're using. So is it something that you could have learned through doing the assignments through the textbook? Or is it something that you would have had to pop into a Google Translate in order to do? Now, some of you did things that if it was a regular week, so I gave everybody a little bit of grace this week, but if it was a regular week, I would have deducted points. And remember that 5 points are deducted for every structure that you have used that is beyond the scope of what it is that you are meant to know in the textbook. So lots of you wrote these very long, or some of you wrote very long, complicated sentences, which was not at all what I asked for. All I asked for was, hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Juan. Estoy bien. ¿De dónde eres? Right? That was all I wanted. That was the whole thing, right? Or something like that, right? That was all I was really looking for. So I would have known that you did your own work because you based it off of the information that was given in the textbook. So it's very important to base your assignments off of the page numbers given in the textbook. Next week, when I look at the assignments, I'm going to look and see if they look too advanced. And if they look too advanced, I'm going to deduct 5 points for every single time you've used something that I couldn't find based on the page numbers in the textbook. So, and that's not to say you can't look things up, right? Of course you can look things up, but I want you to stay within the scope of the assignment. That is what I'm really saying, right? So I asked for something in the assignment and I really want you to stay in the scope of the assignment. Okay, so the other things that I'm going to note are that some of you didn't use accent marks. It is super, 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 super important that you use accent marks, okay? Because accent marks in Spanish can make the difference between one word and another word, okay? So, for example, in Spanish, if I use the word como, if it has an accent mark, then it would be translated how. If, on the other hand, I don't use an accent mark, that word doesn't mean how, it means like or as. I have the word papa. That word can mean potato if there's no accent mark. Or papa, accent mark, it means father. There is example after example after example after example. This happens again and again and again and again. An accent mark will mean the difference between one word and another word. People like to give the classic example of mi papá tiene 40 años. O mi papá tiene 40 años. One means my father has 40 years. The other one means my potato has 40 anuses, based on whether or not there are accent marks or not. So it's super important to have accent marks. You really, really have to have them. It's not optional. If it's an accent mark there, it needs it. It's because it has to be there, right? Because it makes the word what it is. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I was going to say is some of you forgot your punctuation. So you notice in the textbook, right? Questions have upside down question marks and right side up question marks. That's not optional in Spanish. And if you have a question, it has to have an upside down question mark and a right side up question mark. And it has to have an upside down exclamation mark and a right side up exclamation mark in order to be grammatically correct. If not, it is not grammatically correct. So it's also important to, be paying attention to the punctuation that's listed in the textbook. If it's there for a reason. It's not just there for nothing. So those are some things that I'm going to note. Some of you were asking about the best way to do discussion boards. So I'm just going to also, I told some people in emails, but I'm also just going to list it here in this little video. So in my opinion, the best way to write a discussion board is first, you open up a Word document using your textbook, you write the discussion board in that Word document after you set the Word document to Spanish. All right. So first, before anything, and there's a tutorial in Brightspace on how to do this. You go in, you set the Word document into Spanish. There are a couple of ways to do it, but one way is, you have to go into review and then language and then set proofing language, and you can set it to Spanish. Once you set the language to Spanish, I would type my little thing right up in there. Okay. It's going to sometimes correct things for you. And so that's okay. Right. So then I would save it. Then you can submit that Word document directly into the discussion board. And then when you copy and paste it into the discussion, you can submit it into the Dropbox, for the plagiarism check. Then, since it's already open, copy and paste directly into the discussion board thread. And then that way, that the accent marks are there. If you have a Mac computer, you can set the keyboard into Spanish and makes putting the accent marks in there easier. But if you don't have that, I might recommend, if you're a little bit more techie, creating symbol shortcuts. But if you don't want to do that, in order to make the accent marks, basically what you have to do is you have to go to insert symbol and insert each individual accent mark. So anyway, those are just some suggestions, some helpful recommendations. I hope that you found it helpful. I wasn't trying to chastise anyone. I'm just trying to let you know, because I really like to be clear so that everybody is on the same page. Okay. So again, it was so nice to meet all of you. And I hope that as you go into the weekend, you have a great weekend, and I will see you all in week 3. And looking forward to reading all of your submissions for week 3. Don't forget to go through all your process and make sure that you are following the textbook. Okay. All right. I will see you all in week 3. Bye.